Morning, everybody.
Morning. Morning.
It's nice to see all of you. Nice to see everybody online. Even with camera set up, it's a little bit of an improvement. Now you can see the people online. Well, really nice, really nice to see everyone. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about a story between Dongshan and his teacher. But I first wanted to talk a little bit about offering, just because it feels very relevant. As I was preparing to come into the Zendo this morning, I saw a large bowl of apples with a handwritten sign that said, free or take one or something along these lines. And then there was also what looks to be kind of a sculpture of a mountain, and apparently it's an incense holder. It says, please take this. And I thought, wow, it's what we do here. We offer. This room that we're sitting in is an open invitation. It's an offering to whomever wants to step into these walls. This talk, it's an offering. You're offering your attention. You're offering your aspiration. And ultimately, what is created here, we're also offering. So how cool to be involved in a tradition that is about giving things away. Giving this moment away. Giving this talk away. Giving what was away. Giving what is away. So what's arising? Just offering it freely. And in fact, this particular encounter between Dongshan and his teacher that I'll be talking about also echoes offering. So many layers of offering. But this tradition is here because of offering. From warm hand to warm hand. From volunteer to volunteer. To ringing of the bells, to turning on the lights. So what we have now, it's being offered to us, and we're offering it. So the story that will be the basis of this talk is the final dialogue between Dongshan and his teacher Yunyan. Their last exchange. And this is from the Book of Serenity, and this is from the commentary of Case 49. When Dongshan took leave of Yunyan, Dongshan asked, after your death, if someone asks me if I can describe your reality, how shall I reply? After a while, Yunyan said, just this is it. Dongshan sank into thought. Yunyan said, you are in charge of this great matter. You must be thoroughgoing. Dongshan left without saying anything more. Later, as he was crossing a river, he saw his reflection, then for the first time was thoroughly enlightened. And then it follows with his enlightenment verse. But I'd like to talk about this exchange. So Dongshan. Some of you might remember that Dongshan is the author of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi, which most of you know by now, I'm a pretty big fan of. And Yunyan is his teacher. And in fact, this exchange, this final dialogue is also embedded within Song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. We see this within Song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. And this particular teaching for me has been one that it keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. Just this is it. Just this is it. Such a simple teaching. And such a vast teaching. So I'm excited to unpack this a little bit with all of you. To begin with a little bit of context here. This is their departure. They're leaving. Dongshan is about to leave his teacher to go visit other teachers. A teacher that he is greatly endeared to. A teacher that he loves very much. And his question before leaving is, at your death, how would I describe your teaching? How would I describe your reality? And after a pause, he says, just this is it. And Dongshan misses it. He sinks into thought. And Yunyan says, you are now in charge of this great matter. You must be thoroughgoing. Didn't even understand what Yunyan was saying. And yet Yunyan said, you're in charge of this great matter. You must be thoroughgoing. And it wasn't until later, after they had departed, that he understood what his teacher was trying to describe to him. So just this is it. How can we seek to understand this teaching for ourselves? I did my first half-day session back in 2008, I believe. And I was living in Duluth, Minnesota at the time, and it was late fall. And there was a place where I had heard through the grapevines that there was a Zen teacher who was in town, and he was the head of a monastery, and he was going to be giving a talk. I thought, that sounds cool. I'll go check that out. And so I went, and the room was packed. And I remember most people were in chairs, and there was this teacher, Shokin Weinkoff, seated on the floor. Well, kind of like looking down is my memory. And he was talking about Zen practice, and he's talking to a room of, probably more than half of the people who didn't do Zen practice, didn't understand Zen practice. And he was talking about his drive from southern Minnesota, actually Iowa, but pretty much southern Minnesota, all the way to northern Minnesota. And he said, so as I was on my way here, I thought, what am I going to give a talk about? Or what about this? And I remember him saying, this is driving moment. This is driving moment. And that stuck with me. This is driving moment. I later became inspired by other talks that Shogun had given, and I found an old one in which he was describing his path to Zen practice. And he said it was after he had gone through a divorce. And he said, oh, this is divorce moment. And now, between the span of probably maybe 10 years at that point, when I had heard that talk and the very first talk that he gave. This is driving moment, this is divorce moment. And that stuck with me. It stuck with me. By the way, my first half-day sesshin was very, very difficult. I thought it was the hardest thing.
This is difficult moment.
This is difficult moment, yeah. Although I didn't have the bandwidth to say this is difficult moment then. What I did have the bandwidth to say was, oh my God, get me out of here. I'm tired, I'm angry, this is grueling, all I do is sit, it's dark, it's cold. It was a vivid experience. I remember there was frost all over the vehicles in the area that morning after the sun had come up, going down, and there's this beautiful kind of swirling frost. I think it's called Thule frost, but I'm not exactly sure. It's just gorgeous, sort of almost reminds me of what I would call Victorian wallpaper, although I don't know if that's a thing or not, where you have these amazing swirls. It was a vivid moment, and it would be many more years before I would walk into a Zen center. And it would be many more years after that, maybe 8 years after that, that I realized, oh, my very first sesshin is actually in the same lineage that I'm now training in. How cool is that? And for me, for many years, sesshin was actually a word that I would use for anything that was unnecessarily difficult. So I'd be doing something and it just felt grueling. I'm like, man, this is like the sesshin. So, if you've ever attended a sesshin and you've had that experience, that's okay. And now I really enjoy sesshin, so it can change. Going to sesshin, oh, I can put everything down. I can put everything down. So I was reminded of this story from Shokan. This is driving moment. And later, this is divorce moment. I like those examples because they really seem to hone in on what this just this is it teaching has in store for us. On the one hand, our practice is really simple. Just this is it. I'm just driving. I really want to turn on the radio. I'm turning on the radio. I can't find anything I want to listen to. Oh, just driving. Just going to drive. What's it like to just drive? And the inevitable difficulties that come up in our lives. Oh, this is divorce moment. Whew. Painful. This is what it's like. So just this is it. Something interesting to reflect on. If somebody were to ask you, like, what is your understanding of Zen practice currently? And how could you phrase that really briefly and then give that to somebody else? What a cool kind of thing to consider. Yunyan says, just this is it. Just this is it. I also really enjoy that Yunyan says, just this is it, after a pause. So one way that we could look at it is, oh, maybe he was trying to figure out what to say. He was thinking, what should I say? Or maybe the just this is it that he eventually brought words to was already in view. Just this is it. So when we sit Zazen, just this sit. We're sitting, we're holding our posture, we're breathing, we're in the room, We're feeling our emotions, we're feeling our body, letting everything go, leaving everything alone. Offering everything. Apples, incense holders. Offering it all. And in this offering, part of the whole. Sitting, just this is it. In a relative way, we're holding our posture. And in an absolute way, we're merging with the universe. We're merging with our true self. We're uncovering that. We're getting to know it. We're building a relationship with our Buddha nature. And the way that it's being talked about now by so-called me is also relative. This tradition teaches that we are complete. This tradition teaches that we are basically and originally whole. And we're part of everything. And that our Buddha nature is not necessarily something that we need to uncover. But yet our Buddha nature is something that is already present. And that we're living within, that we are enacting. So that just this is it that Yunyan is talking about. It's immediate. And it's total. So it's immediate, right here, right now. This is it. Now. And now just this is it. And it's total in that just this is it. Includes the whole body, includes the whole mind, includes the whole room, includes the whole universe. Just this is it. Momentary, immediate, total. And we sit. We sit to enact how complete we already are. And yes, in our divorce moments, in our angry, just driving moments, we feel thrown off. And so we establish practices to help us remember, oh, that's right. That's right. Part of this whole thing. So beholding just this is it. Beholding it. Just this is it. Opening to it. Just this is it. And now just this is it. My teacher, who many of you have been able to meet now in person, which is kind of cool. Ted, one thing that I've noticed about Ted over the years is when I meet with him, sometimes I'll have a lot to cover off on. And sometimes I can find myself like sort of moving away from where I actually am in order to tell him about the things that are going on. And I've noticed the way that he engages with objects. It's such a wonderful teaching. He'll often have his glasses next to him. And so sometimes he'll take them off and he'll put them down. And he'll pick them up. But the way that he does it, it was with such care. He takes them off, folds them slowly, puts them down, turns the case ever so slightly. I've seen him do this hundreds of times. He's reminding me, just this is it. Just this is it. Right here, putting the glasses down. And I love so much that Yunyan didn't give up on Dongshan. I appreciate so much that Ted hasn't given up on me. So Dongshan's lost in thought. Just this is it. I wonder what he means by that. Yeah, but I have to go. I have a long walk ahead of me. Do I know the way or not? And it says, you are now in charge of this great matter. You must be thoroughgoing. It's not saying you're in charge of it once you understand it in the moment that I say it. You're already in charge of it. So just this is it. You must be thoroughgoing. You are now in charge of this great matter. This great matter. Often in our tradition, this great matter, it's life and death. We have this human life for an unknown period of time, and at some point, it's going to disappear. So that's part of this great matter. What do we do? What do we do with the life that we have? Just this is it. Truly, just this is it. I really continue to just love the teachings of this tradition because they're so vast. They're so aspirational. Vowing with all beings. So this great matter, that we're complete. We don't practice to become good someday. And we don't practice so that we can be better. We practice to express our original wholeness. The way is originally perfect and all-pervading. Originally perfect and all-pervading. Alternatively, basically, or fundamentally, not was and no longer is. Entirely, completely, totally. It's just this is it. Whoa. You know, interestingly enough, I was doing a little bit of research, and among the historical Buddha's final words, they were very similar. It was Yunyan to Dongshan. The Blessed One said to the bhikkhus, "So bhikkhus, I exhort you." And this is 3 months prior to Buddha dying. And the Buddha is currently dying at this point. And people are concerned. "So, bhikkhus, I exhort you, all compounded things are subject to vanish strive with earnestness. All compounded things are subject to vanish. Strive with earnestness. So impermanent, inconstant, will change. Sometimes we hear about impermanence and it doesn't sound like very good news. Oh, jeez. But impermanence can be really wonderful news. I did a Vipassana retreat, one of these 10-day long ones, and oh boy, what year was this? This is probably in 2013 or so. That sounds right. Anyways, these retreats are really something. Multiple 1 hour long sits. It was very regimented. The technique was quite established. And at one point, you watch these talks from the person who's kind of created this organization and is carrying on this tradition. And he would say, anicca, 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 which means impermanent. Impermanence. Permanent. So impermanence can also just be a reminder of how precious this all is. Impermanence. We have a chance to engage wholeheartedly with something that's changing into something else. Anicca. Anicca. I needed to hear that. You promise? This is so hard. Changing, changing, changing. Just this is it. And now just this is it. So this great matter that we have before us, let's be thoroughgoing. Not because we're afraid of what will happen if we don't, but because it's a gift to be thoroughgoing, to engage entirely with the so-called life that we have. There's a story attributed to Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, where a student had stumbled into his room, at least this is the way that I imagine it. A student stumbles into his room, and in his room he has the radio going, he's reading a newspaper, and he's drinking coffee. And the student's confused. He says, "You tell us to do one thing at a time." And he said, "Yeah, and right now I'm drinking coffee, reading the newspaper, and listening to the radio." And in our culture, that's where we want to get to. We want to go right to that. Tim Burkett says, Zen practice is really simple. It's almost too simple. He said that to me. It's really simple. It's almost too simple. Meaning that we're given these very simple forms to do. And we do them, and we do them simply. But to do them simply also means to do them wholly, completely. So we practice just this is it, sitting. So that when we're at work and we're a little bit irritated with you know who, we can take our seat. It's just this. Rising irritation, impermanent. Taking good care. Restraining moment. So that way, as things get complicated, we do things simply. So as things get complicated, we're ready. Or something else that's really cool. Just this is it. Very simple activity. Recognizing, wow, there's so much going on right now. Whoa! Whoa! Just this is it. So much is happening. I was sweeping up some acorns in the driveway on Friday. Extremely exciting. They're bouncing all over the place, making a ruckus, listening to the neighborhood, taking in the beautiful light. So much going on. Just sweeping those acorns. So here we are, in charge of this great matter. What does that mean, to be in charge of this great matter? In charge of it? What do you mean in charge of it? At any moment. Moving right back in to this great matter.